Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Jarrett Goes to the Movies, a weekly podcast where Jarrett Reddick and friends get together and talk about a movie that they watched that week. Plus, whatever the hell else is on their minds. Get ready for the best hour and a half you'll have in the next hour and a half. Here they are, Eric, Casey, Sean, Amy, and because he's famous, his name's on the show, Jarrett. Welcome to Jarrett Goes to the Movies.
Welcome to Jarrett Goes to the Movies. The intro got it 20% right because Eric is here, but there's no Amy, Casey, Sean. And because his famous, his name is on the podcast, Jarrett is also not here. It is me. It's Eric, your trusted voice of reason co-host here, hosting Jarrett Goes to the Movies, our 299th episode. There's no telling when you're going to hear this because I do believe that our 11-hour Back to the Future trilogy drunk extravaganza a few weeks will take up 6 episodes after this. But we had to get this one in before we could do that one. But everybody left. Amy's on vacation in St. Lucia, St. Kitts, something like that. Sean couldn't be bothered to participate in this. Jarrett obviously is out of town on tour with his rock and roll band that a lot of people have heard of, Bowling for Soup. Ooh. And Casey, I think, was just like, Eric's hosting with one of our Patreon supporters. Nah, I'm good. So it's me. But we have the very distinct pleasure of having one of our great Patreon supporters co-hosting tonight. You guys, Greg, you're going to have to give yourself the applause here.
I'm already ready with the button.
You guys give it up for the one and only, you know him, you love him. Greg Lee is here, everybody. Greg Lee filling in.
Yeah. I was already had my finger on the button for that one. I'm like, he's getting ready to introduce me. I better get the applause ready.
It does feel kind of like self-masturbatory to, well, I guess it's all self-masturbatory. I don't know. When it comes
everything I do is self-masturbatory, so it's okay.
I would know everything about it, but this is the one thing I don't know. Can you masturbate someone else? Of course you can.
Yes.
So applaud yourself anytime you want to. When you make,
We're off to a great start right on the bat. Talking about masturbating someone else. Now, that's a whole philosophical question.
Right, because wouldn't they just do it themselves better?
Right,
anyway? But
if you do somebody else, is it self-masturbating? It's not. You're masturbating somebody else, but then are you just jerking them off? I don't,
And, I mean, wouldn't Kafka say, that the self is kind of more, encompasses more than just you as who you are, and self is kind of all of your surroundings and beliefs. So who really knows? Greg, I'm really glad you're here. When we started talking about doing it this way, you were obviously a natural choice for the show. You have your own podcast. Yeah. Anyone watching the stream can see that your setup is so much more professional than mine. And I keep it simple on purpose because I can't figure anything out. I am definitely to the age where I hold my phone out when I'm reading it and I peck with one finger. And the power went out last week, which is why we couldn't do this episode last week. Right. We had some storms roll through here, and my microwave clock, when I reset it, went to military time. And so for the last week, I'll be like, "What time is it, babe?" And she'll just look at it and go, 17:24, whatever that is. That's in the evening.
Yeah. Well, I was in the Air Force, so I know what that is. I'm surprised it just wasn't blinking zeros, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I did try to get that taken care of. I can't have that. And when I said it, it was like, "Oh, what time is it?" Well, it's 11:15. So like type in 11:15 and now it looks correct. And then like just a little bit after like 1 o'clock, it started looking kind of funky, but I'm pumped you're here. You obviously been on the show a bunch of times for 5 questions, and probably for video stuff and sending in stuff. You and Jarrett, really great friends, and you and I become really good friends. I would like to think over the last few years. You're a regular at our Wednesday night trivia thing, which I probably should start considering working on for tomorrow. And
okay,
so I'm pumped. And you've got your own podcast. You do a well, why don't you tell us about the podcast that you do?
Well, so the interesting thing, the funny thing is that the whole thing with this podcast was that I had known Jarrett for a while because of my military affiliation. I met him at a show. He had a bunch of military coins. I got him a coin rack, and then we just started, every show he how Jarrett is. He recognizes his fans. He knows his fans. And so the more he sees you, the more he gets closer to you. He's just that kind of guy, and he's amazing. So it ended up that he actually took me backstage for one of the shows, and we were talking about things. He told me about the podcast, which I did not know about. So I said, well, I'd be glad to be a supporter of the podcast. So that was like 3.5 years ago, which is crazy to think. It goes by so quick. And so I started doing the guest spots. One of the things that I'm known for and I have a lot of fun with is dressing up for every podcast I'm on, which is really weird that I'm not dressed up tonight. I was actually thinking about it before I went on. I'm like, I have no costume, but I just couldn't see myself wearing one for like the whole thing. It's hard enough for like 30 minutes of 5 questions because I'll have like a fake beard, glued on, and it's
so hot and itchy.
Yes, but I have a lot of fun. Yeah, go ahead.
Appreciated your the costume that you wore for our episode on Philadelphia. That one was really top notch. You lost a bunch of weight for the role. I did.
I had little sores all over my face. Yeah, that was pretty bad. I let my hair fall out. Yeah, it was good. Really good. That's bad. Anyway, but the funny thing was that the reason I actually started dressing up was because of John Gickler. I saw him do a 5 questions in full Kiss makeup, and I'm like, that's funny. And I was like, that's what I want to do. If I'm going to be on 5 questions, why don't I just dress up like somebody from the movie? And it just kind of, now it's like every time I do it, I feel bad if I don't do it, because now it's like, oh, I've obligated. I gotta keep the streak up. And when I launched my own podcast, which is a Philadelphia Eagles podcast, we just started it this past season. A buddy of mine who I've known for almost 20 years in the military we're both big Eagles fans. We met as Eagles fans in the military. We were both stationed in Europe. And, he's been trying to get me to do one for several years. And he said, this is the year. Let's do it now. Let's just launch it. This is the time. Everything's hot. So who did I go to get my setup? It was Sean. Because by this time, I'd known Sean quite a bit, talked to him quite a bit. We saw him, person a couple of times when I come down to Dallas and got to hang out with him. So I just said, hey, give me the right gear. You give me the list, and he did. He sent me on a shopping list, and I got everything that I needed to do this. And I'm really grateful to him. I didn't realize when I got into the podcast thing, doing the Eagles thing, is that how much work goes into it, because it's not so much this. This is great. Yeah, I love being able to just freestyle and just talk. It is the editing stuff that takes me an entire day when I do an Eagles podcast, because you got to take out all the ums and all the outtakes and everything that just isn't right to make it sound professional before you put it out. Sure. And then just being able to save it and everything like that. And that's the stuff that, man, I really appreciate Sean for all he does, because I didn't realize when I got into it that it was a ton
of work. And that's the part we kind of all know, but he's doing socials, he's lining up people for 5 questions, and since we only stay on schedule 40% of the time, it's telling those 5 questions people that now they're no longer on tonight, and can we reschedule you? And when we have to postpone for whatever reason, and they're always, it's always something important. It's never like, well, let's just fuck off the podcast tonight. But I feel the worst for him, because it just becomes this whole, okay, I'll reach out to everybody and do the thing. If your experience with gear is anything like mine, then Sean put you about $9,000 over. Oh no, I lost Greg. Greg, all right, let's just hang out for a second. Not gonna like freestyle or vamp here. I'm just gonna wait for Greg to come back like a moron. I'm gonna text him and tell him to get back. And what level did I just beat on Candy, Gardenscapes? 7,379. I am pretty good at that game. See, maybe I pissed him off. We'll find out. Come back. Or maybe he... Oh, here he comes. What the fuck?
So I apologize. I had this stupid window popping up, and it was saying, it was like just somebody on like Facebook or whatever. It just kept blinking in my eye. So I went to close it, and I closed the wrong window. So I apologize for that.
Thought I pissed you off, like
right in the middle of talking about it.
We both
Sorry
are friends with
that.
Sean. I can talk shit about him.
Yes, you can. You can. Yeah, can.
So, because my experience was, I had told him maybe a year ago or so. It was about the time that I get my yearly bonus at work, and I said to him, it's been 20 plus years since I owned an electric guitar. I have my Martin acoustic guitar that I've had for many, many years. It's the only one I own. People have these collections of guitars. I just have the one. And I wanted to get an electric guitar. So I was asking him, like, what do you think is a good, like, Fender Telecaster type guitar and a like Fender Twin type amp, and I want to be all in cost, like under $1,500, whether that's $750 for the guitar, $750 for the amp, $1,000 for one, $500, whatever. I don't mind. Let's just try to keep it $1,500. And he's like, oh yeah, man, I got you. And he sends me a link via text for this amp. And I'm like, okay, we're off to a good start. And I pull it up, and this amp is like $2,300. He was like, oh, it's so awesome. Like, it models all these other amp sounds. So like, if you want a Fender Twin sound, yeah, you've got that. Vox AC30, Marshall Stacks, it'll do any of this. And I'm like, will you please scroll up and reread my initial text to you and tell me what part of this you screwed up? And he was like, no, man, I know you want to be on a budget, but like, this is the amp you've got to have. So I just stopped doing any research after that, and I didn't end up buying one. In fact, when I went to London with Jarrett and them a few weeks ago, I had to borrow an electric guitar from my buddy Josh.
Okay.
And then I had to borrow an amp from my buddy Scott. And then Sean lent me the pedal that I used for the like overdrive solo stuff. Wow. So I just had this like Frankenstein setup of stuff because Jarrett, in his brilliant musical sense, just decided that the one guy who's never played lead electric guitar in his entire life should be the one to go debut his album in front of a live audience. And it ended up fine.
Yeah.
But there was no guarantee that it was going to end up that way. So anyway,
I thought it sounded great. I saw the videos on Facebook and I thought it was great. It looked great. It's funny because we've talked, I think I've talked to you more than I do Jarrett these days, and because of the trivia and everything. And I every time I saw the video, I kept looking to see how you were doing. I'm like, oh, check, there's Eric out in the back. Hey, he's hitting on the notes. Because I play, you guys probably don't know, I play guitar a little bit. One of the reasons Jarrett and I became friends is I did like a Kickstarter and got like a free guitar lesson from him. And that's when we started talking and everything like that. But I've been playing guitar for a while, and I do it just for me. I've never played live in front of anybody. I do it just as like hey, I just want to get all the thoughts in my head out, because when I'm playing guitar, I can't think about anything but that. Yeah. So that's kind of like that cleansing thing where you play it loud. You got to focus on what you're doing, and I need that in my life, because when I'm not doing that, my brain is like firing 1,000 synapses trying to figure out what's going on in the world. So yeah,
it's the crazy way runners describe, like when you start running, it's just this process of like, just, oh my God, I'm actually running and this is terrible. And then eventually people start to describe it as like this, they say runner's high for a reason, right? And then it just gets a calmness about you, and kind of only the thoughts that you want focused on are happening at that time. And
right. I've never gotten past the running is horrible part, so I've never gotten to the.
Never got past the. I'm gonna do couch to 5K. I'm gonna get healthy, and then Greg. I mean, I was talking to my cousin over the weekend about this. I mean, I'm to the age where I leaned over to plug my phone charger in at the bed, and I kind of stretched the wrong way, and then couldn't move my shoulder for 2 days. And so I'll run twice on this couch to 5K thing, and then have to take a week off while I ice my knee and elevate it. And it's this, I got to find something more low impact than just running.
I was in the Air Force for 22 years, and we had a yearly evaluation, 1.5 mile run, and we did PT all the time, and I never liked it. And so God bless the people that do it. I mean, more power to you. I have never been one of those. A good slow walk is good for me. I mean, I did it when I had to, but I was never one of the fastest or anything like that. So for me, running is not, you got to find out what works for you as far as getting the thoughts out of your head. Because I think we're all like that. We all I don't know if we're all, I know, come to think of it, my wife is not much like that. She seems to be of a singularity thought. I envy my wife because she can focus on one thing and I can't. I've got this scatterbrain that goes everywhere. So
an uncomplicated mindset is something that I would envy from somebody who doesn't just have a billion things bouncing around in there with each other and causing panic and anxiety and whatever. People who can just, maybe it's like the swan, right? Very graceful on the top, and that's all we see. And underneath, their little legs are, kicking away furiously.
Yep.
But when I see those people who don't look like a total wreck like I am, I just go, I wonder what that might be. And the Klonopin kind of helps, but only to some a minor extent.
I've had people tell me they because they see the podcast, the things I do. I've done radio. I did radio for 5 years professionally, and it was a lot of fun. And it was actually while I was active duty. But people would be like, "You seem so together," and I'd be like, "That's because I got you fooled. That's because inside there's a lot of things going on that you have no idea." But yeah, so it is a lot of fun to do this, because doing this, I can kind of focus, and I enjoy that. That's why I enjoy doing the podcast. It's the after stuff where I've got to edit it that I don't enjoy it.
Yeah, total mess. Well, I'm glad that you were willing to do it. So thank you a lot for joining us. For those of you just joining us, it is just me and famous noted Patreon supporter Greg Lee running the show tonight. Everybody else has something better to do, and God damn it if I don't blame them. But as you probably know by now, Jarrett is over in across the pond, as we say, back in the UK, crowd surfing the UK, I believe, is the tour with Lit and the Dolly Rots. And so today's the 12th, which means that they have, well, it's pretty late over there now, but I think that they just played the Empress Ballroom in Blackpool this evening. You spent some time in the UK while you were in the Air Force. Do you know where Blackpool is?
Yes, it's coastal, I believe, the East Coast. I never made it to Blackpool while I was there, but I believe it's East Coast.
West Coast, just north of
Is it West?
Liverpool.
Oh, yeah, that's what I meant, West. I'm horrible. Since I was 5 years old, I've never figured out my left from my right. My wife always has to correct me on that. So, yes, I'm pointing to my hand on this side, but yeah. So the West Coast. Sorry, yes, West Coast near Liverpool. I never made it out there.
You were an aviation navigation specialist in the Air Force?
No. I was a medic in the Air Force. So luckily, I never had to distinguish that as far as what I did. So yeah, it's all good. But Blackpool, from what I understand, while I was there, I went to a lot of places in England. It's like they've got a lot of they have like leisure beaches and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I've been following the posts on the fan page tonight from Blackpool, just seeing everything that was going on, and it makes me miss being over there. It makes me miss seeing the boys live. But yeah, so they have a lot to do. I said, Jarrett's over there. Amy, I think Kate posted in the chat that they're in St. Bart's today. Amy is, and so yeah, everybody's got better things to do than we do, I guess. I mean, this is pretty good for me. I'm pretty happy.
I was going to say, I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing a fun podcast where you just hang out and talk to your buddy and have a scotch and a beer and, hang out, or a Zima or whatever you're drinking there. Oh, is that just water?
Water. This is Aquafina. I do, because every time I do 5 questions, I always have scotch with me. This was a Christmas gift. I got a gift set of this Brook-Laddie Scottish barley that my son loves. And so I've been drinking that tonight.
Top of the morning to him.
Yeah. He likes like the heavily peated scotches. I'm more of a single malt, like dialed down Glenlivet type guy, but he loves the peaty stuff. So he got me this for Christmas to try. I'm
more of a McCormick's. Yeah, the very bottom shelf when you go to the bar, and like
stuff.
McCormick's tequila and vodka they sell. So they're experts at both.
We have in the military, we had a thing called Soldier's Choice or America's Choice, and it was like the generic down at the bottom. Like I'm talking gallon bottles of vodka for like $4.99.
Oh my god!
Unbelievable stuff.
And when your tank stopped running, you could pour it in. And
what my wife does is, because it's like 200 proof. My wife takes it and she'll put fruit in it and make cordials out of it, which is just they're amazing once you do that to it. So she'll do that, and then she'll bottle them and give them to people like she made her own moonshine. It's pretty cool.
Okay, well, that's something grandmothers would do. I made you some cordials.
That's what she does. She puts like a big pot, and then she'll put the vodka in it, and then she'll put like all kinds of fruit, and then she'll like can it. It's almost like canning. It's her version of canning.
I mean, I guess if you're going to have to can, doing something alcohol related is, the way to do it.
It works.
Tomorrow night, the homies head over up the M6.
Nice.
To Glasgow.
Oh.
Glasgow. Is it Glasgow? Glasgow.
It depends on where you're from. Glasgow.
They'll be in Scotland tomorrow. So if you guys are on the chat and want to, head on over to Edinburgh, then take a train to Glasgow.
That's western side of Scotland too. Yeah, Edinburgh's on the east. I've been to both, and I saw the boys in Glasgow years ago. That was a great trip. We went up there. It was kind of funny because I'd seen them in Boston like a month prior, and then I got assigned to England a second time, and then drove up like 6 hours from where I was at. I was in Cambridge. Drove up to see them in Glasgow, and it was a great show.
Cool. All right. Well, I was looking it up when I tried to see where they're playing tonight and then tomorrow, and thought, man, they're going to have to like drive a bus to a whole different country. It's like 3 hours. I can't even get to Austin from here in 3 hours. So,
I was thinking that it's a little bit further from Blackpool to Glasgow, but maybe not.
I don't know. Maybe I was looking, like if you drive 400 kilometers an hour, you can be there in 3 hours. I don't know. Yeah. Who knows? Well, Greg, I have bad news for all of us involved. We have no new Patreon supporters from the last time we did this, which was, I mean, I honestly can't remember. Well,
what was the 300th episode, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but then before that, it seemed like it was a long time. But I don't know. We haven't had a new Patreon supporter in a month. So you guys listening, get your shit together. We're tired of being poor. Speaking of Patreon, this is a podcast that is 100% supported by our Patreon supporters. You will notice that besides when we take a break and play ads from the 1970s and 80s, those are the only ads you would ever see on the show. I do get the sense that we wouldn't find a corporate sponsor willing to put their name on our product ever. So maybe it's kind of out of necessity that we do it this way, but there is a connection that we have with you guys. And so if you're interested in supporting, even there's levels at $1, I think $2, $5, $10. Each of them gets you kind of different perks. There are, as far as I know, I would never listen to them, but hours and hours of outtakes that don't make it to the final release that goes out on iTunes and Spotify and all that, you get access to those, discounts on merch. And then at some higher levels, you can send in videos, review for the movies that we're doing. At $35, I know that you become an alternate for 5 questions. And at the $50 level, you can be on 5 questions pretty often. We've got people up here have been on the show 30, 40 times. So there is a price point that will work for your budget. If you would like to support the show, we'd invite you to do that. But this is a David Dooley and Woody Chambers production. Our Patreon supporters are all at the $20. Producers are all at the $20 level and up, and they are Suck It, Vinny Cataldo Craner, Amy Strongbottom Pitzinger, who is not here tonight and still supports the show with money, even though she's on the show, Andy Smith, Angie Thorin, Brian Mason, Brian Sullivan, Brian Dunning, Shell Ordway, Chris, the $12 million man Cranfill, Chris Jacobs, Corey Reed, my buddy from high school, Daniel Cotton, David Dooley, David Kendrick, David the Original Murray, Dennis Hop, Denny Chambers, Diana Wheeler, Diane freaking Small, Dom Surfenberg Petretta, Ernie Soulman McCracken, God damn it, Gage Stricklin, who you will hear from later, Gregory Cordone, Greg Lee, that's you.
Hey.
Greg the Hammer Stevens, A Hangover You Don't Deserve podcast, Jake Miltonberger, he's one of our newers, Dr. Jason Aylesworth and his trusted sidekick, Kidney Pete, Jay Palladino, Jeff Millman, Jeff Millman, whose brother you will hear from later, Jeff Yeager, fucking Joe Barlow, Rat Pack Joey Bishop, John Gickler, Josh Hanlon, Josh McDreamy Millman, MVP Kate Etro, Katie Gardner, Kim, Frosting on the Beater, Murphy, Kirsty Fisher, Zaldor.
Yeah, we don't have the sound effect, but yeah,
they can insert that.
That's pretty good. I think Sean will. I think he'll do that. So
just add a little echo. I think we'll be good. That's less Zaldor Saluski to you and I. Lily Hollahand, Lindsay Sponsel, Lisa Winsel, Lucy the Original Murray, Mandy Pretty, Melody Ortloff. Anybody whose last name Murray from now on will become the original.
Nice.
Mandy Pretty, Melody Ortloff, Michael Price, Mike Leblanovitz, Nick Brignoni, Rodon James, Ray Elliott, Rich Osborne, Robert Dirty Muffins O'Doyen, Ryan Clydesdale, Sarah the Undertaker DeAngelis, Sean Blackstone, Sean Barger, Steve May, Steve Rhodes, Tom Murray, Trey Wren, Vinny No Fucking Clue, 2 Wins Cataldo, Wendy Whatsamata, Woody Chambers, and last but not least, always will be last, Zvi Hirsch. Everybody give it up for our Patreon supporters.
That's good. Yeah, I like the original Murray thing. That's pretty good there. That's everybody should be she is the original Murray.
I give Jarrett a hard time about going through those Patreon names. They stay pretty static over the course of a week, month, year. But that's a mouthful to get through all that. I can see why he gets tripped up. And nobody tried to slide in a little fake name tonight. So
I'm surprised that Sean didn't try to give you something like that. I was waiting for it. I was waiting.
Drop a little bomb in there to stumble across while he's
exactly
doing whatever.
But yeah, I am always impressed at how Jarrett just throws through those names so quickly like that. So yeah, you get a better appreciation when you're actually on it.
I'm like, why don't you just record it, bro? Like, think smarter, not harder.
Well, yeah, usually always changes. So he's got to,
that is true.
On his game.
Greg.
Yes.
You know what we're going to talk about?
What are we going to talk about?
We're going to talk about Uncle Buck.
Yes.
1989. They say comedy drama. Comedy drama.
Is it, though?
Like every movie has to have some conflict to push a plot along, right?
Yes, okay.
But that doesn't make it a drama. It can be a comedy that still has some parts where you're not real sure what's going to happen next, but I don't consider it a drama. I just think it was a comedy. I don't know. But it was an hour and 40 minutes that to me flew by.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, I'm surprised by this. I don't know if you looked this up.
Okay.
But we are coming in hot on Uncle Buck with a 7.1 out of 10 on IMDb.
Oh, really?
And 64% on Rotten Tomatoes. Now, this is a good time to tell people, again, how Rotten Tomatoes works. It's not that the average rating was a 6. That's how IMDb works. This is that you either say, I liked this movie more than I didn't like it, or I disliked it more than I liked it. And however many percentage of people liked it more than they disliked it, that's the number you get, which means only 64% of people who responded liked this movie more than they disliked it. And I find that to be crazy.
Well, it's hard because that's still above average. I mean, it's Rotten Tomatoes. The thing is especially with internet and social media, there's so many people that you can't please that no matter what you do. So to be above average is actually probably a good thing. I would say 64 is probably low comparatively. And is that the fan rating or the critic rating on Rotten Tomatoes? Because there's two different.
Oh, I don't. Why are you don't ask me questions about. Okay, we're gonna.
I threw you a curveball. All right, we've got to go.
Greg.
All right, let's back up.
Don't ask me about how this show works. Don't ask me about
All right, I'm gonna look it up.
Things in general function as it relates to putting a podcast together. How one decides to do it, because I know how a podcast works. On my end, you watch a movie one time a week, then you drive over to someone's house and you give everyone a hug and you sit down and you plug your laptop in and then you talk about it and then you pack your shit up and you go home and you do it all over again next week. And that is the end of my knowledge of how a podcast works.
Okay.
So don't ask me any more questions about
okay. I won't do that.
Okay. I think it seems low because John Hughes is like a universally loved.
Right.
There are people who like milestones of their young adult teen lives can be set to his movies from Pretty in Pink, 16 Candles, this one, A Home Alone.
Definitely.
There are, it kind of, like the Brat Pack was the kind of voice of that time. I feel like John Hughes was the director of our lives at that point.
I agree. The 80s was John Hughes's era. I mean, that he was
Ferris
the king.
Bueller?
The guy did know how to write these drama comedies, if you want to call them that. I don't consider Uncle Bunk in that vein. I think the drama gets kind of shoehorned in. It's mainly just a flat out comedy, but the guy was in his time, it was one of the best directors, especially for our generation. He was one of us. So I think that he was able to speak to us on our level. So I did look up the Uncle Buck thing. And what was crazy was it was funny because I looked it up on Rotten Tomatoes. Did you know there was like a series in 93 that they tried to do with it? Because that's when it came up first. And then there was a series in like 2010 that they tried to do with it that was a black version of Uncle Buck, which is interesting. But the tomato meter is 64% of the critics liked this movie. 76, of the audiences liked this movie. So 76% of the audience, which is the better score. The critics, I can see why critics would go, it's just another John Hughes movie. It's not that funny.
I don't give a shit about what the critics think about anything because their job is to be critical.
Yeah.
And I mean, and there's a value to that. For better or worse, they are more, generally speaking, usually more learned, kind of better read on kind of cinema as an art, as opposed to kind of the consumerism of, I watched this movie and I think I didn't enjoy it, as opposed to techniques and history. And so I think critics have a value in that they kind of take that combination of knowledge and can apply it to a new piece of art and say, this is what it is. This is what it isn't. But but I think we have to. I think I would separate that from, are you, as John Q. dickhead moviegoer, going to enjoy this? Because those are two separate things. We've talked about on the show before, like, I've never seen Citizen Kane, and it's always number one on the AFI top 100 films ever made.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm certain that I wouldn't enjoy it, regardless of the masterpiece quality of the art, because what fucking fun is a movie? Like, I don't know. But you know what I'm saying, right?
Right. Yeah, no, I get you. And that's why I think that the Rotten Tomatoes 2-score system is important, because you can choose if you're one of those guys that likes, say, example, one of the things that's hot right now is A24 films, the horror films that they do. They got the new movie X, they had the Midsummer, they had Hereditary, all these intellectual horror movies, if you will. So if you like that sort of thing, and that you like that, you'll look at the critic ratings to go, okay, the critics like this, then I'll like it if I'm that type of person. Me in particular, I'm kind of in the middle, where I like some things that are artistic and intellectual, but a lot of times I can find it boring. I found Hereditary boring. I found Midsummer boring. And my son went and see X and he hated it. He said it was another one that was boring. But critics absolutely adore these films. So you have to kind of, gauge yourself, like knowing what you like and what you don't like. In the case of Uncle Buck, where it's 64% of the critics love it, 76% of the fans love it, that makes sense, because this is a type of movie that you can put on with the family and then just kick back and enjoy the wackiness of it. It's a easy film. It's a safe film, and it's fun to watch.
And I think, you're right. I mean, there's a value to what they do that doesn't, that isn't always going to translate to whether or not you're going to enjoy, this film or not. So, but I think I find it still surprising a little bit. Look, I'll be honest. I mean, I watched this last night for the first time in, God knows, 15, 20 years, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, and I did text you before we started this. I said, let's talk about some John Hughes ratings later, which we can do. This doesn't come close to being one of his better films. So I guess I can see 76% being right. I don't know. We can't debate people's feelings. We have to respect everybody.
Did you like it or not? Did you enjoy it when you watched it again? Did it hold up?
I enjoyed it for sure. I think John Candy is a national treasure from Canada, a Canadian national treasure. And yes, I mean, it checks all the boxes, doesn't it? With the teenage angst and the kind of redemption arc of schlubby loser makes good because of the love of family. And, there are some things that that work for it. I think there are some, the flip side of that coin is there are some pretty formulaic, not a lot of surprises here. And I think you've seen one movie like this, you've seen them all. So nothing particularly groundbreaking or exciting about the movie. But again, movies don't have to be groundbreaking or exciting to be enjoyable. So I would say I definitely, on the Rotten Tomatoes score, would have given it, I liked it better than I didn't like it.
Makes sense.
As I'm sure that you would. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how I would do a IMDb score for it. Probably in the 7 to 8 range.
Okay. Yeah, that's generous. That's generous.
Dude, where's my car being a 10?
No, you didn't just say that. Is that really like one of your favorite movies?
I mean,
it's so strange because I've watched you on this show for quite a long time, and it seems like you're very discerning on what you like and what you don't like, and to know that that's like and I'm not judging. I think that's a very funny film. it's just funny what tickles us and what doesn't. So it's kind of funny.
I fully embrace the hypocrisy of me not liking some films we watch on this. And we have on numerous occasions explained away that a lot of these films that people hold near and dear to their hearts, I never saw as a child. So when I watched them for the first time as a 44-year-old cranky man, like we talked about earlier, with thoughts always bouncing around my head of what I need to do tomorrow and kids stuff and work stuff and whatever stuff is going on, they will not and cannot and should not be expected to resonate the same way with me as a 44-year adult seeing it for the first time as someone who saw it in their kind of formative years. But I saw Dude, Where's My Car in my formative years. Was probably drunk, or something else. And I mean, I know, but I also like movies that don't take themselves too seriously. Like there was nobody on that film, from production to actors to directors to writers, who thought they were making a masterpiece. They did, but nobody thought that they were. And so I think it has a little more a genuine feel to a movie like that. And I will just say, I hated The Love Guru for the opposite reason. They can both be silly and stupid, and no one goes into it expecting a masterpiece. But I felt like Mike Myers specifically honestly thought that he was coming out with one of the top 5 comedy films of all time, because he's just kind of a smug douche anyway. Right. And it just all fell so flat for me. So it's hard to describe, and everybody's got that with music and with movies. And I like this album by this artist, and one would think, that I would love this other album by this artist, and I hated that one. That happens. But
it's funny you say that, because I work for a living. And I have a work from home job, which is really nice. So I do a lot of Zoom calls and stuff like that for meetings. And it was funny because I got personally offended when somebody in our Friday staff meeting said, they said, and this is what ticks me off, is when you tell somebody you like something and they immediately shoot it down. So they said, "What's everybody doing this weekend?" And I said, "Well, me personally, Tiger Woods is back and I'm going to be watching the Masters." And this woman that I work with chimes in and goes, 30 minutes watching golf is 30 minutes wasted. And that was it. I said, I just went on a rant. It didn't go over well. I said, look, I may not watch Married at First Sight. I may consider it trash. I may consider anything trash, but I'm not going to sit here and judge you for watching it, because I assumed she was the type of person that watched it. So I was making an assumption, like she made an assumption about me. But I was like, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to judge you for watching it. So what the hell? What are you doing? So yeah, it is funny because you compared 2 really similar movies, and I watched both of those, the podcasts on those, Dude, Where's My Car and Love Guru, and they're very, very similar. You do make an excellent point, because I think with the Love Guru, had we had not seen the Austin Powers movies, that movie would probably be funnier to us.
It's possible.
Because a lot of the jokes are recycled from that film. So it is kind of one of those things where you've seen it before. Me personally, I found it funny too. I think it is a bomb, but it's one of those that if you just sit back and enjoy it. And so as far as Uncle Buck is concerned, what is really weird is that I hadn't seen this movie in about 15 years either. I haven't seen it since the early 90s. And I watched it a week ago to prep for the podcast, and then we got rescheduled. So today I put it back on again, just because there was some funny moments, and I wanted to kind of refresh my memory before going into the podcast. What was funny was, because I didn't have that I'm going to study it brain, that I'm just going to let it unfold, I laughed more this time watching it, because I was laughing at just the individual moments. Yeah. The scene where Macaulay Culkin and him do the back and forth dragnet type thing. I was giggling through that whole thing. One of the things that really cracked me up was when he's making breakfast for him, And Macaulay Culkin, good. He's so good in this movie.
Yep.
He walks in, he looks at his sister, he goes, "He's cooking our garbage." I was like, I ended up laughing out loud. The first time I watched it a week ago, I was like, oh, that's funny. Today, I thought it was one of the funniest things I'd ever seen. So I think it's like one of those things as far as moviegoers go, it is something you can put in, you're going to enjoy. And that's why I think it's that above average comedy. But when, like you said, when we're talking about John Hughes's best, it's somewhere in the middle. I would say it's not in the top 5. It's not in the bottom 5, but it's right there in the middle that you can bet on. So he'd already had that formula down.
Yeah.
The guy did Vacation, National Lampoon's Vacation. He wrote Vacation in the early 80s. So we're talking, this one came out in 89. He had the formula down by that time. But what came in between, some of the best stuff that we've seen in movies as far as teen films, family films, whatever you want to call them, they were some of the best ever.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, we used to do this on the show all the time, and then I think the first part always got to taking too long because everyone's got something to say about everything. So we stopped looking at the cast. But a couple of cast notes here, Greg.
Okay.
So Maisie is the littler girl in Uncle Buck. I have been watching this show on HBO called Winning Time: The Rise of the Lakers Dynasty. You've been watching that thing?
I watched the first episode today. It's coincidentally, I've been saying that's on my list. I got to watch it. And so today my wife took the dog for a walk and I'm like, you know what? I'm putting on the first episode. I'm going to watch the remaining 5 all the rest of this week. That is an amazing show.
So she is in this show. I don't know if she's in the first episode, but
she's the assistant, right?
Yeah,
She's the one who rolls in the drink cart to the guys right at the beginning, to all the old rich white dudes, and is like, "Hey, I brought you some alcohol."
Yeah, she's got a
love
big
her
role in that. And I didn't recognize that obviously because she's just 9 when she was an actress in this film, But yeah, when I was looking at IMDb, I was like, no shit. And that show, my brother-in-law told me about it. Like, you got to start watching this. I don't care if you don't like basketball, which, I do. I don't care if you don't like the Lakers. He's like, you have got to watch this. It is the most kind of like stunning cinematography / editorial / acting, breaking the fourth wall in moment. This whole thing, the cast is phenomenal.
Yeah.
So if you guys are listening, Winning Time: The Rise of the Lakers Dynasty gets 4 thumbs up for me and Greg.
Yeah.
And you're gonna
I agree.
My partner Kelsey was watching it with me for the first, we watched it together. And then she was just in Ohio over the weekend, and these come out on Sunday nights. And she was like, don't watch that until I get home.
Oh, it's reached that status. That's a huge status. That is, you get in trouble.
Cares nothing about basketball at all. That show's that good. And then, I don't know if you ever watched this show, Shameless.
Yes, yeah. I actually watched the British version too.
Oh, see, I've never seen the British version. I loved Shameless, the US version, for as most of these types of series go, for about 7 seasons, and the last 2 I could have done without. But the guy in the bowling alley, Pow, who is flipping his toothpick back and forth and then pounce on it, is the racist dad of the Milkoviches in Shameless.
Oh wow, yeah, that's right. I didn't even think about that. That is, yeah.
Like a young.
Yeah, he was really young in Uncle Buck. He was the one that comes over like after the sleazeball hits on her. Yeah. And then he comes in and he's really nice. Yeah, that's that. I just made that connection. In fact, the Gabby Hoffman connection I didn't make until you mentioned it, because I actually looked up Gabby Hoffman after watching the movie and had not watched Winning Time yet. So so that's crazy.
So before we get into this first clip, I forgot though the budget information on this.
All right.
So it cost these guys $15 million to make this in 1989, which is $35 million today. And so box office, $1989, $80 million bucks. Today, that's $188 million. So that's over four times budget made back in the box. So almost assuredly, I didn't look up the other John Hughes films. I mean, almost assuredly on the lower end of that scale, I would think, but successful nonetheless. All right, well, you want to talk about a movie? You want to watch a movie? Oh, is this the part where we're not on Facebook? No.
We are, I think we're on YouTube and on Twitch right now.
Okay, I bet Sean didn't even put us on Facebook because he didn't want to have to trust me to go off Facebook.
Right. I have not seen us live streaming on Facebook because of the copyright issues. Do you want me to do the synopsis?
Oh, yes.
As well?
Over to Greg Lee for hold on. Over to noted Patreon supporter Greg Lee for his synopsis.
Nice. Very good. Thank you, Eric. As an idle, good-natured bachelor, Buck Russell is the last person you would think of to watch his brother Bob's 3 children. However, during a family crisis, he is suddenly left in charge of them. Unaccustomed to suburban life, he soon charms Miles and Maisie with his hefty cooking and his new way of doing the laundry. His carefree style does not impress everyone, though, especially his rebellious teenage niece, Tia, and impatient girlfriend, Shanice. With a little bit of luck and a lot of love, he manages to surprise everyone in this heartwarming family comedy.
You know, Greg, back in my day, a synopsis was one sentence, maybe 2 tops. Where did you get that from?
Okay. I liked the original synopsis that was on here, right, on IMDb, but then I scrolled through like the user synopsises, and it was so much better. This is the synopsis on IMDb. Bachelor and all-around slob Buck babysits his brother's rebellious teenage daughter and her cute younger brother and sister. That's it.
Okay, but I feel like that's still better than what you just read to me.
I liked the other one better.
Movie Lovers 69.
It
69.
does. I love it. Yeah, exactly.
It's
so
too much.
I give credit. No, it's great.
That was heavy. We don't even have to watch the movie anymore. That person literally described everything that happens.
But you have to love that this guy included with a little bit of luck and a lot of love.
And a lot of love. That's a movie trailer shit.
It is great. I love that. So
in a world where Buck loves the Chicago Cubs,
you can almost hear the Peter Gabriel song Salisbury Hill.
Salisbury Hill.
With a little luck and a lot of love, Buck manages to surprise everyone.
All right, here we go. Stuff. Here's clip number 1.
Your book bag doesn't go on the floor.
Oh, let's have a cow. Your nails are digging to my arm, goddammit.
Pick it up.
You're just supposed to open the door first. You're not supposed to kick us around. I'm an American. I have rights.
Maisie, did I kick you around?
No, but you said shit twice. But only once for real.
I've got better things to do than babysit you little stain.
Oh, like what? Hang out with friends you don't have?
Why don't you just shut up?
Want to make me?
When our mother figure isn't here, I'm in charge.
I'm sick of you calling her that.
Too bad.
You moron.
It's Kevin McAllister. I know that movie came out a year later. Home Alone came out a year later. It is, you could convince me that these happened in the same world where after this, they find out that Buck molested him, so he had to go live with a new family.
Oh my God.
And
then Buck went on to be a polka player.
Yeah. But like undercover, but just because he's trying to get back to Kevin or something, they change his name and everything. But like, it's the exact same, phrase. I mean, I know we don't expect like little kid actors to like change it all up.
No.
But the cadence and the phrasing and the mannerisms are just the same kid.
It's not like he's a toddler Jared Leto where he's got to go into a method acting where he's going to get all moody.
looking in the mirror and rubber bumpers.
I am so glad that Sean picked that scene out, because when I watched the movie, especially when I watched it today, I was like, damn, I didn't realize, I didn't remember how much children friggin' swore in the 80s movies. It is, compared to today, you know, you kind of think that today's society is a little bit more free and open and liberal. No. Those movies. Watch The Goonies. I remember when my kids were really little, we thought it would be a good idea to put The Goonies on for them. And then you've got Corey Feldman, everybody going, God damn it, like 5 times in a row. And you're like, what the hell are we watching here?
Well, but I wouldn't have that problem, because I watched The Goonies the same way that I watched Back to the Future, which was taped off of TV.
So you got the edited for television version. Yeah. Oh, gosh, yeah.
Honestly, before 10 seconds ago, had you asked me if there's any cussing in The Goonies, I would have just said no.
No, watch the.
Yeah, but that's just the way it was. Hell, we watched The Jerk for the show, and there's that kid riding around on that train with a shirt that just says bullshit on it.
I love it. That was the 70s and 80s, man. And you know what? Growing up in that time, because I grew up in the 80s, and it was like, you don't think about it, you know, that was a norm. And then there were people that just kind of weeded that out. We're not going to let kids. I think with the dawn of Nickelodeon and Disney Channel, they kind of weeded that out of our kids, where now our kids going to be nice and sweet characters. But you look at the 80s movies, even the John Hughes movies, go back to The Breakfast Club, for crying out loud. Yeah. These are teens, and they're talking about some serious shit. So yeah, there's somebody in here in the chat said hearing him say "damn it" was great. And it was like, yeah, it's like when he turns around, he goes, God damn it, leave me alone. It blows my mind, man. I love it.
This one started off hot for me because there were a couple of little lines in here that, like, I would get a real kick out of here at the house. Like when she goes, people eat there, and the girl goes, people eat on plates. Like that's a me and Eller thing. And then what we just saw, where he's like what, hang out with friends you don't have, was so great. What I did realize very early on is that this big sister, kind of a fucking bitch. I mean, hot. Like, they don't give her any redeemable qualities to start out with, and really, she doesn't ever have any redeemable qualities besides. Like, we are all supposed to understand that teenage girls are just going through it, and everything sucks, and we should still love them anyway. That's the point of this movie.
I tell you that I thought, you know, the thing with the teenage angst character, they've been doing that since the 60s, 70s. It gets worse as it goes, and it's still used today. I started watching the show with Courtney Cox and Greg Kinnear called Shining Vale. I can't watch it anymore because the teenagers are so insufferable, even though they're like 25. But they are so angsty, and they so hate their parents, and it just gets old after a while. It's so cliche. But this girl, she is probably the worst I've ever seen in a movie. I would rank her in the top 5 at least. I got to the point when they're eating dinner, when they're eating the Chinese food, and she tells her mom, so this must have been really hard for you to cook this Chinese food, you know, when she knows her mom ordered in. And her mom's like, we've all had enough of your mouth, or whatever she says. And the girl just looks at her and just glares at her. And then you see the mom's horror in her face. I would be locking my door if I was a parent at night to be like that. She's going to come in with a butcher knife and stab us in our sleep.
You're right. I mean, this is a device that is used all the time, and it's used because it's relatable, and that's fine. Right. I understand why. But generally, to do it successfully, you give the character some redeeming, just a glimmer that the person inside there isn't someone that you just want to get hit by a bus. Because what did I say? If she doesn't get hit by a car at some point in this movie, I will consider it a failure. And that was about 4 minutes into this fucking movie.
you see the clip, the way she treats her little brother and sister. And granted, I had an older sister. She was 6 years older than me. She threw me. It was so funny. Just a side note. So I'm a kid. I'm like 6 years old. My sister's 12. She's the same type of way. She's just always mouthing off, and she just doesn't like me whatsoever. And one day she decided to throw me down the front steps, and she just grabbed me by my shoulders and shoved me down the steps. So I fell down, I'm all scraped up, and I turned around, and at 6 years old, I yelled up, "Bitch, you're a bitch." So my mom flies out the door, and I think, okay, here comes my savior, because she saw that my sister shoved me down the steps. No, she picks me up by one arm and just starts beating the hell out of me because I cursed. I cursed.
Watch your mouth, Gregory James Lee.
So I can relate to that kind of character, but man, it's so dark compared to everything else. They don't even give her a story like why does she hate her parents? Her parents seem to be nice people. That's the thing. They both work. They ordered Chinese food. If my mom had ordered Chinese food, I'd have been, woo, every night. Come on.
Yeah, I love Mugu Gai Pan. Give me some of that. I think that was the most shocking part to start with, was just like she comes in like a wrecking ball, like shot out of a cannon, just grade A bitch. And fuck, man. So that was hard to get around forever, for an hour and 40 minutes.
And she doesn't let up for the entire, like when Buck comes to stay, and you get with some of these movies where Buck, he's going to have to deal with the teenager, but man, it's like she gets on with her phone with her mom. And she tells her, he drinks and he left home with the kids. And you're like, oh my God, this girl's horrible.
A psychopath. Like setting up situations. I'm surprised she didn't accuse him of like trying to.
Yeah, he tried to tell you exactly. I was thinking the same thing. I thought when he's like, well, he drinks and he left the kids at home. I did expect her to accuse, and he's fingering Macaulay like Michael Jackson in the corner. It's horrible.
He brought his monkey. So that was shocking. And then, so we find out that like we get this like small introduction to Buck, and he's gonna go work for his girlfriend's like tire company or something, selling tires. And we get this big, if I could think of an excuse not to be there tomorrow that you'd believe, I would. And God damn it, Greg, guess what happens?
Yep. That was one of the best lines in the movie. The whole movie like starts off that way. And again, like we mentioned earlier, John Candy, national treasure. This movie does not work without him, because there was so many, we saw, if you look on like the trivia, you see so many actors that were considered for this role.
John Goodman was one.
Robin Williams, Jim Carrey.
Okay, so if you turn this movie, this is what I was thinking was, we get a similar setup to this movie with Mr. Mom, where an unqualified adult male is now responsible for the kids, and hilarity ensues.
Yeah.
Except Mr. Mom was more hijinks. It was that he finds himself in these situations that he doesn't know how to handle, and that because, all of us dads are idiots. And that's true. I just had my kids on my own for 4 days while Kelsey was in Ohio, with her sister visiting her mom. So like, I get it. I know that like day one was fine. There were groceries, and like I had work.
I like the level that there was at least groceries.
There was food.
I knew there were groceries. There were definitely groceries.
Eller had school. I had work. We're all just kind of doing the thing. But then, like around 5 o'clock, Mom's not here, and the kids are like, "Okay, what's up? What are we doing?" I'm like, I don't know. What are we supposed to do? Like, Mom's not here to tell us to get dressed to go, like, meet her sisters for dinner, or go play with your cousins, or like even something like, why don't we just go outside? Like, that thought didn't occur to me. I was just sitting there frozen. And then, yes, as the weekend progressed, it just got worse and worse to where I would just look at him and go, we can't be at home anymore. Get in the car. We're going to Buc-ee's.
Yeah, I know Buc-ee's.
There's a Buc-ee's like 4 minutes from my house.
I would love to have a Buc-ee's near me. Just saying.
So
I'm in Ohio.
This,
so
like 90,000 square foot gas station, if not more. You know, they've got all the snacks, they've got all the food, they got all the beef jerky and the sour. It's like a wet dream come true if you're going on a road trip. Like, stop at a Buc-ee's, super clean bathrooms and all this stuff. Well, it was just like, I know if I take them up there, that kills an hour of the time instead of me sitting here with my thumb up my ass going,
right,
what do I do with you guys? So I get the setup. The unqualified male is taking care of kids. It's just, I found Mr. Mom so much more kind of lighthearted and you kind of empathize with it. And I found this one, you're right, John Candy can pull this off. You'd have to change the script completely to like a Mr. Mom thing to make almost any of those others work.
Yeah, I totally agree. If there was any other actor, even Michael Keaton, Robin Williams, Jim Carrey, Robin Williams, the Mrs. Doubtfire thing works, but in this, it is that blue collar black sheep of the family that he pulls off so well. Even in the opening scene with Amy Madigan, his girlfriend, where she's trying to, hey, tell me you're going to be there. You believe it from him. Then when they show his apartment and the bowling ball hits him in the head when he opens the closet, it's just he does so well. And the thing that I loved about the John Candy performance, or just the identity of the man as a character, is the fact that when he gets there that he wants to do a good job, that he loves his brother. He wants to make his sister-in-law love him. You can just see it in the way John Candy portrays it. And that's what the only thing that carries this movie and makes it so much fun is he's like, I really want to do a good job for you guys. I want you to be able to go, because honestly, it's that John Candy character of lonely guy syndrome where he's like, I want to be loved and I want you guys to bring me in. And I thought that out of all the, like I said, that's what makes it a watchable film, is because John Candy's so lovable in that role. When he comes in, it changes.
He was less of a buffoon than I remembered.
Yeah.
I kind of, going into it, again, not having seen this in 20 years, I guess in my mind thought he just comes in and is a bumbling moron who just can't figure it out. And, you can be unmotivated to do anything with your life and not be stupid, and so, but this was, like you said, it's a perfect marriage of kind of like this heart of gold. And maybe the guy just didn't want to grow up. I look back on that and it sometimes sounds pretty awesome. Everyone says they wouldn't trade in what they've got, but I mean, my brother lives in Colorado and he's like 42 and has never been married and no kids. And he seems to be getting along just fucking fine, doing whatever the hell he wants, whenever the hell he wants.
Yeah.
With no body to tell him that he's got to, get pants on to go do this or, go do whatever. And maybe deep down, he's cripplingly lonely, but it doesn't seem that way for my end. But yeah, I mean, you're right. Like, but I remember thinking like he's this, bumbling idiot of a person who, only by dumb luck is able to keep these kids alive for however long their parents are gone. And that's really not the way the movie is.
It's funny you say that, because it reminds me of when we see movies when we're younger. Because what I remembered from the film before watching it over these 2 weeks was I remembered the scene in the bathroom with the urinals that were right near the ground.
Yeah.
And I remember that in the trailer. And I remember the movie poster where he's trying to come in and everybody's pushing him back. And so my perception was of this character that was just going to wreck their lives.
Mm-hmm.
But the opposite, when you watch the film, is true. He comes in, he makes their lives better because of who he is as a person, that he is this guy that never had this. He never had the family dynamic. I mean, that could be very easily be your brother that comes into the situation and finds this family dynamic and he wants to be a part of it. And then it changes his life. Because one of the things I like it, and I want to jump all the way to the end, but right at the end when they put the kids to bed and he turns to his girlfriend, we should have done this years ago. We should have done this years ago. It tells him that this guy's he's grown as a person. When we go into the comedy drama thing and they do shoehorn the drama of the teen angst and the daughter, it seems a little forced. It just seems one of those things that it's a John Hughes formula that we've got to have this, but it's very anticlimactic. So I don't really care about her growth and that the fact that she loves Uncle Buck at the end because it's so quick. It happens within a matter of minutes. There's she hates him and then all of a sudden she loves him and it's like, But what I did appreciate was the John Candy growth where he starts off as this guy, he's really trying hard. And then by the end, you see this where he's ready to start a family himself. He's really come out of that. So yeah, I like that.
Yeah, that redemption arc is what makes the movie. And, again, who better to pull it off than John Candy? And, Greg, all it really took was a little bit of luck and a whole lot of love. So,
exactly.
But hey, then the wife's dad has a heart attack. So we're getting into like why this is all happening. And
yes.
But they don't want Buck to watch. Maybe they'll get the neighbors. Oh, guess what? They're on vacation. Movie would have been a lot shorter had the Nevilles not been in Florida, but they were. So these people apparently only know their neighbors and their uncle. There's nobody else in the world, in their world. And that would be kind of crazy. Like there are very few people, I think, that would have the fucking nuts to call me and say, I have an emergency. I need you to come watch my kids for some undeterminate amount of time.
Right.
I mean, probably nobody because I have a family of my own and like a bunch of shit going on. But, that's a lot.
Yeah.
It's one thing when it's your own kids for that long, and it's a whole nother thing when it's somebody else's kids for that long.
Well, what the funny thing is like their grandfather had a heart attack. Are you not going to bring your kids? Well, I mean, what if grandpa dies? What the hell?
Only about 1 day later in real time and about 4 minutes later in movie time where, oh, you know what? He's actually fine.
Exactly.
Miraculous recovery.
And then they stay. But it's like they're in Chicago. Your dad's in Indianapolis. That's not very far. You can bring your kids with you. It's okay. You just left there. You used to live there. but it's like,
oh, and she goes, yeah. If my whole family moved away from me, I'd have a heart attack too.
That was
fucking piece of shit.
That was a horrible line.
It is a good thing that the Nevilles were in Florida because I don't know if you know this about their dog, but he's a real ball sniffer.
He is a ball sniffer. I did love that. I loved Macaulay's delivery of that. I'll be honest with you because we're going to get into our favorite John Hughes movies. I'm not a huge fan of Home Alone. I'm not.
Really?
And I'll get into that later.
Okay.
I'm not a huge fan of Home Alone. But I love Macaulay Culkin in this. And it's part of that is those lines. Like he's a huge ball sniffer. And then his dad's like, don't say balls. What am I supposed to say? I don't know what else to call them. And then they start talking for like a minute. And then all of a sudden Macaulay goes, nuts.
Yes.
I'll say
nuts. Yeah. Child actors, every now and then you find one that, just takes over like public consciousness.
Yeah.
Right. Shirley Temple, Judy Garland.
Yeah.
And my God, is there Fred Savage, I feel like was a lot like that. But I think Macaulay Culkin for his glory years, however long you think those were,
Right.
and maybe that's really only 5 or 6 movies. You know, this one, Home Alone 2, the one where he gets stung by the bees.
Yeah, My Girl. Yeah,
My Girl.
Yeah. He's great in that.
You know, it was just this magical, like, I mean, you know, you'll have popular child actors everywhere. You need kids to act in movies, but just one that like transcends even like famous adult movie stars of the like that. He's just so comparable in like
Screech.
Public thought. Yes, like poor dead Screech.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. It is. Yeah, I can appreciate him now. And one of the things I'm going to throw out there is an obscure reference is that I was not a huge Macaulay Culkin fan, except for maybe this movie. And even then, I really just didn't like him growing up. But later on, there was Jim Gaffigan got his own show, which was on, I forget, it was on an obscure cable channel. I can't remember what it was. I used to download it and watch it back about 5-6 years ago. And it was basically just Jim Gaffigan about doing his stand-up and all this other stuff. But what was really funny in the show was he would go out to a nightclub and Macaulay Culkin would be behind the bar, bartending. And Jim Gaffigan would go, "Hey, aren't you?" And he's like, Who are you talking about? And it happened every episode. He'd run into Macaulay Culkin and he'd go, "Aren't you?" And Macaulay Culkin would go, "I don't know what you're talking about." And so he was playing himself, not playing himself. And that shit blew my mind. Every time it happened, I got so much respect for him. I think I love Macaulay Culkin now more than I ever did because of the stuff that he has done to overcome the childhood. Sorry, because let's be honest. We know that game. We could talk hours about child stars who get to be an adult and they just get forgotten about once they grow up. And that sucks that we just let them go. I think our generation or this current generation does more for them now because there's a lot of nostalgia involved. But back, man, 70s, 80s, 90s now, once you were grown up, we didn't want you anymore.
Well, and not only that, but that we've also not prepared you at all for a life where that's a thing, right? So it's one thing that, look, you're a cute kid. There's no telling what you're going to look like or how good an actor you're going to be 15 years from now. We know that. Let's enjoy this. Let's get you set up in a way that if you have to go do something else later on in life, you're equipped to do that. But that was not on anybody's mind because this is a movie making business, not a movie making, mental health situation, society. So it's terrible. And you're right. I mean, history's littered with the Gary Colemans and that just, lose it. I mean, well, hell, everybody in that cast on Different Strokes just about had their own,
all of them. Yeah. All 3 of them. Yeah. It struggled. Yeah. It's crazy. And you get into any of the child stars from, we talk in the 80s, go back to, if you've seen the movie Judy, I thought, actually, I'm not a huge Renee Zellweger fan, but I love her in Judy Garland. And they talk about when she was young and they're filling her with pills and trying to keep her going because the important thing was keeping the studio alive and keeping them people coming into the movie theater. Yeah. And that is the big thing when they hit on it, they work them to death. The kids don't know anything. Look at like Corey Feldman, Corey Haim. Yes. These are guys that you and I probably grew up watching on movies and love these guys. And I like Corey Feldman, but nowadays he's a little bit off there. You
think? Wow, what a
he's got a little, I love him.
Unique viewpoint that you're bringing to the show tonight.
I'd give him
Feldman is a little off.
I'd give him a big hug. But I'd be like, I don't,
Like I mean, and look, I'm contrary to how the show may perceive me, I'm a very empathetic and sympathetic person.
Well, now's your chance on this episode. Is you're normally playing the sarcastic guy,
but this fucking Corey Feldman, right? I mean, first of all, I feel like he partly deserved it.
Oh,
because of this Michael Jackson
oh yeah.
obsession. Like, I get, like, your life can go way off the rails and it can end up in a way that you weren't expecting, and you're not ready to handle it. You're not ready to admit that you now are not what you once were. I mean, I get there's a whole whirlwind of emotions going on here, but that does not give you the right to dress up like Michael Jackson all the time.
Yeah, he
and
does.
go on like morning television and do like Michael Jackson routines and dances.
I know,
and
it is bizarre.
perm your hair to where you have that one curl in the front. Buddy, that's a bridge too far. And we care about you. And if you're out there, Corey, we hope you're doing better if you're listening in. But man, cut that shit out, because that makes people not want to help you.
Right. And that is creepy when he goes on the Today Show and he dresses like Michael Jackson. You're right. But the thing is I one of the things I do, I'm not going to lie, is I watch like a lot of old 80s stuff in the mornings while I'm teleworking. So I've been watching like The Love Boat and Family Ties and all that stuff from the 80s that I grew up on, just because it makes me feel good while I'm working, and it's something I can have on and not worry about it. But I saw Corey Feldman on that when he was like 4 years old. And so this is all he's ever known is showbiz. And I remember him starting to do that in a movie called Dream a Little Dream, where he started to like, his face would be pale.
Yes.
And he was doing a Michael Jackson impersonation. And it's like, it is worrisome, because you wonder. What the interesting thing is I'm watching the chat, and they're talking about they're actually talking about some of the childhood stars that have done really well. And so when you contrast it with what we've been talking about, and I said this a minute ago, where some of the ones from this generation are doing a little bit better. Joseph Gordon-Levitt was a child star. He's doing great. Christina Ricci, she had her rough spots. Sean Astin. So I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of, I'm watching the chat. I'm like, yeah, these are all, young character actors that are doing so much better, because Sean Astin was in Goonies, for crying out loud.
Yeah. And then he's in this Lord of the Rings or something. Yeah.
And Josh Brolin was in Goonies as like a teen heartthrob, and now Josh Brolin's one of my favorites, don't get me started. But but what's funny was that Electric Kitty in there in the chat said that I don't know, Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Macaulay Culkin are both 41.
No,
which is weird. So one went one trajectory and one went the other. So that's kind of interesting.
I do think Matt Culkin is kind of back towards more center. May still be askew slightly, but I feel like I've read lately that he's kind of just back to being a normal.
I do think, he's married, just had a kid. So I think that honestly, I like I said, I made it as an obscure reference, the Jim Gaffigan thing, but I did think it was cathartic for him to do this character that made fun of his fame and was like, no, I'm not that guy. I'm just a bartender. No, I'm not this. And it started leading him to doing other things where he was self-deprecating. I'll be honest. I saw him on a season of the most recent season of American Horror Story, which was a vampire storyline. And he played this homeless guy that, if you haven't seen it, just watch it for him, because he plays this homeless guy that finds out that if he takes this pill and becomes a vampire, he can write the great American novel. And he's phenomenal in it. Just his little part in it, you can't take your eyes off him. He does a great job. So I think he's starting to get out of that.
I think we figured it out, Greg, is that if you're a child star and you're fucking going through it and you're off the rails all the time and you don't even understand like your own actions and why you're doing stuff, have a kid. And just watch the energy that you once had to put into being a huge dipshit will basically just dissipate within hours.
Yeah,
really.
No, minutes. I was explaining this to one of my kids the other day. They're grown adults now, and I was like, they were debating on whether they wanted to have a child or not, and I said that's fine. That's your choice if you want to have a child or not. But I will tell you this: I did not know love. I did not know the measure of love until my first child was born, and then when you see them for the first time, it's like you all of a sudden realize all that thing about how I would kill for this thing. I would die for this little baby. I would do it. It seems like schmaltzy if you don't have kids. You don't understand that.
Yeah.
And then you do. And so, like I said, I think you're right. Like with Macaulay, you have a kid. The world takes on a different meaning.
Yeah.
When you're in that, and I think for him that it has. And so sometimes that never saves him. Like we talked about Different Strokes. Being 80s kids, I watched Different Strokes with Todd Bridges and Gary Coleman and Dana Plato. And she never got the dream. She went into porn. She went and did all the. Todd Bridges became a drug addict. Gary Coleman, of course, did great. He was just a dwarf that died early because he probably did the best out of all of them. But it's just a man. It is a tough business. I would never want to wish that on my kids to get them into Hollywood early. It's so much to overcome. Yet parents force their kids into these roles, and there's nothing you can do about it because they want child actors, and it is a paycheck. But it's so hard to overcome and come out healthy on the other end. So yeah.
Oh, the little girl from Matilda. I think she ended up okay. Mara Wilson. She was in Miss Doubtfire too.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
being a normal human. Well, so Uncle Buck can do it. He agrees. He's not got anything else going on. We get the trope of all of the shit in his closet falling on top of him. That's been used in now 490,000 movies of the disheveled person who opens their closet and, oh no, a set of skis fell on you. Whatever.
But in 1989, was it overused? That's the one thing that when I watch these movies, I have to go, is this cliche or is this like the birth of that cliche? I don't know.
It would be hard to tell. I'm going to look it up though, and we're going to figure out, oh no, what I do. Okay. So before we get into this next clip, I just want to say how I knew that this movie was made in 1989 and not in 2022, 2019, is that Buck went to the wrong house and he's pounding on the door yelling, and no one shot that motherfucker in the face, like through their own front door.
Yeah.
Before calling the police, before trying to find out or anything. They didn't just unload, an entire clip into him. In fact, just kind of yelled across the street,
Oh, it's brilliant. Yeah, I love that.
Thanks for waking me up, and that was it. All right, let's see what we got next. Sean, hit us up.
Sean.
Money. I'll leave you blank checks.
Oh, no, please. I've got lots of money.
No.
No, please.
No.
Look, I got the money, please. I'd like to do this, all right? So, no, come on, will you, please?
Okay, I'll pay you back when we get home.
I won't have any problem cashing a second-party out-of-state paycheck, will I? The reason I'm saying is I've been so busy lately, I haven't been able to do my banking, and I don't think there'll be a problem. Don't worry about it.
Let me just leave you the checks.
Well, only if it's comfortable for you.
That'll be easier.
I guess, sure. Do you have a plunger here while I'm thinking of these things for the morning? My plumbing is just so bad. Well, of course, yours is good plumbing here, right? Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah, just don't worry about it. Everything will be fine. Just been bound up lately. It's driving me crazy. I've been eating a lot of cheese for some reason. I don't know what it is. I got a craving for this stuff. Think maybe that's an allergy or something?
Yeah.
I'm so glad Sean picked that up because that is one of my favorite moments. I literally wrote that down to discuss because that is, I think, the because it goes on from there. It's like, do you think that's an allergy or something?
It starts before that with I quit smoking cigarettes. And she almost seems like she's about to be proud of him until he goes on to describe his 5-step plan of, I'm on to cigars now.
Yeah,
next year it'll be pipes. And then...
It's so good. But the cheese thing where he's like asking her if she has a plunger. Oh, it's brilliant. And it was like, well, your plumbing's probably good, but but I've been eating a lot of cheese lately. And then he says I'm like a big old mouse. I don't know what to do. But yeah.
And again, you think about there are plenty of actors with really great comedic timing, but there's just a timing plus kind of he's just a genuine person. Like, I don't even think he realizes that this is untowards or not something you might ask somebody. In fact, he's trying to be thoughtful. I don't want to cause him nuts.
Yeah, exactly. He's just trying to, and I love before that when he's trying to act like he's self-sufficient.
Yes.
Don't worry about it. I've got it. You guys go. I don't need any money. She's like trying to give him money. I'll give you traveler's checks. No, I'm good. And then when she's like, okay, then I'll pay you after. Yeah. Then you see the realization hit him where he's like, shit, I have no money. I have nothing. So do you think they'll take a out-of-state second party check?
Payroll check.
And then you know that then she's like, oh, okay, let me just go ahead and well, if it's okay with you, then if you're comfortable with it, then go ahead. And that's just brilliant. And what it reminded me of, so I wanted to ask you this question because it was kind of funny that you brought it up before I even did, is that I think everybody that listens to the podcast, I think everybody in the world has black sheep in their family. And that's what this movie is a little bit about. These are the husband and wife, they're going away and they have to leave their kids with the what they consider to be the black sheep of the family. There's the scene where he's going through the photo album and he sees that he's been folded up. That is such a big scene. That's where he sees his face has been folded under in the photo album and shoved into the photo album where he's gone. He's just out of existence. And he has to deal with that. And it's kind of funny because I started thinking about it when I started watching about the black sheep in my own family. Maybe I'm the black sheep. I don't know. Am I the drama? I don't know.
If
Maybe
if you look around and you don't see a black sheep.
But what's funny is that, I grew up in kind of humble, origins in Detroit, Michigan, joined the military. And I was the first one in my family to get a college degree, but I joined the Air Force first and then I got my degree. But my family was all that I knew really growing up. But then I got married and I started having kids, and you go to visit your members of your family and you're bringing this other part of your family now into your family. Mm-hmm. And I think everybody goes through this. And if they don't, then they're, like you said, they're probably part of the other side. But it was like, I always thought all families drank that much. I thought all families had massive brawls at get-togethers, at cookouts and whatever. You don't realize it until you see it through the eyes of somebody else. So I would take my wife to see my family, and I don't want to get into deep into individuals in my family, but let's just say some people got drunker more than others. Some people were very vocal more than others. And then you start realizing that there are some members in your family that I probably wouldn't leave my kids in with.
Yeah, some are a little handsier than others.
I don't want to go there either, but yeah, we've got video to prove that one. Yeah. So it's crazy. So do you have that in your family? You said your brother in Colorado, is he like that or is he just independent?
See, here's the thing, because of the difference in the way we were raised. Our family, as we've talked about on the show before, I mean, my immediate family, mom and dad, me and my brother, we were very conservative, Christian, church on Sunday mornings, Sunday nights, Wednesday nights, youth group on Tuesdays, church functions outside. My parents were, when we were littler, were what they called huddle leaders, which was like, groups of 15 to 20 teens, that were your kind of small group Bible study. I mean, this was our entire lives. It was my grandparents' entire lives. They had retired, they traveled, and were very religious. So me and my brother were both black sheeps of the family simply by kind of doing the things that most other normal teenagers were doing. And we were, and like you said, you don't want to get too far into it because I know this isn't my own personal counseling session. But, I mean, we were made to feel pretty worthless. And I think my brother and I both have some pretty long-standing self-esteem issues related to kind of this perfection or this ideal of perfection that we were brought up in, and made to feel like we were so terrible all the time, so sinful and so, just ungrateful. And we were good. My brother and I both were good kids. Now, my brother, maybe got more into the pot. I got more into the drinking. After I graduated from high school, went to college, lasted a year, dropped out before they could kick me out, moved back to Texas or back to Dallas, started doing bands, and then I'm out in bars 5 nights a week playing shows and just being an all-around general kind of worthless 20-year-old kid. But I look back on that and go, yeah, of course I flipped out through my whole 20s because I wasn't allowed to do anything. I thought everybody went to church 6 times a week for various reasons. I thought everybody had a 8:00 p.m. curfew that changed to 10:30 when I was a senior in high school. I thought all of this stuff, I started to realize it more as we got older, so it stands to reason that my brother and I both kind of were like, the second we had any individual choice in what we were going to do with our life, any freedom at all, not only did we embrace it, but we strangled it to death, and just kind of went off the deep end. But my gosh, a little too much, maybe slept around some. Ryan, kind of smokes pot every now and then and just kind of floating through life doing his thing. Jesus, if that's the worst fucking thing that we did. So, obviously extended family, there's always the one aunt or the one uncle, my Uncle Lonnie, who we've talked about on the show quite a bit, for all the things that he's very bad at, he's very good at giving young boys back massages. So that's, one thing. What I'm saying is not everyone is bad at everything.
Right.
So sometimes even in a storm, there's a rainbow.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But
I feel you.
There were plenty of times where we were made to feel like we were the black sheep. And I look back on it now and go, no, you're just regular kids with an incredibly restrictive environment that, was almost impossible to navigate. You never really know, or me and Ryan never really knew what we were going to do or say that would send particularly my mom like into a, frenzy of guilt and passive aggressiveness and yelling, craziness. So aren't you glad you asked?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that. So I've learned a lot. So I'll say that right off the bat. But the funny thing is that it sounds like we have a similar upbringing. I love my mom, but she was very, very ultra Christian conservative, and it was to the point where there were times where they would burn records at our church. Oh, yeah. And one day she went into my record collection and she pulled a bunch of records she was just going to burn. And I grabbed her before she got out and she had the friggin' Eagles, the long run in there. I'm like, you're going to burn the Eagles. Who would burn the Eagles? They're not even halfway demonic. So you deal with that kind of instance. But I was the youngest, so I was kind of like the angel. So I didn't get it near as much as everyone else because I was youngest of 6. And I have 3 brothers, and it's kind of funny because 2 of them, are married right now. Have gotten married, have kids, and do all things. But I do have a brother who is like Buck, he's living with my aunt right now. He's taking care of her. He's not living off of her. He's taking care of her, and trying to, she's actually, she's in her 90s right now. So he's a good guy. And that's the thing that when you look at it, just like you said, when you're talking about you can call somebody a black sheep and you can label them as being off the rails or whatever you want to talk about. But I think what this movie illustrates really perfectly is that even though Buck is considered the black sheep and his sister-in-law is ashamed of him, he is determined to make sure that their daughter does not get violated or assaulted, that their kids, that they don't get bullied or anything happens to them. He makes sure they have food every day. I do love, make sure their dog is fed. How often do you feed that dog every day?
I like her response. How often do you think, like, that's some, again, because you have kids, that's some, like, your kids shit.
Yes.
Hey, Dad, how many cinder blocks do you think you could put on the car hood before it dents? Tell her, how many do you think? She'd be like, 5? Why do you think that?
But that's so beautiful when he's like, 4 or 5. No, once time a day. Okay, that's
wow,
good to know.
Okay, yeah.
And do those plates cost a lot that you have in the front room?
Then I leave the toilet seat up for the dog. Oh, the blue water. That's okay. Right. Okay. So that's not good for them. Right.
But the thing is that, like I said, 4 brothers, we all have different stories. I mean, my oldest brother, he was a war protester.
What's the age difference between, like,
oh my gosh, right now? So say I'm 50 and my oldest brother right now would be 67.
Okay. 7.
And so my yeah. So my next oldest brother is 9 years older, and then I have a sister that's 6 years older. But yeah, so we're kind of spread out, and then there's a brother that's 12 years older. But my oldest brother was like a war protester that had the leather jackets with the fringe on it and peace and love. Spent time in prison for, standing up for what he believed in. He spent like a year in prison. So he has a whole different story than the rest of us. My next oldest brother that was, that's 12 years older than me, when my mom went through crap and my mom and dad were getting divorced, he took me in for a little while to give my mom space and everything. So he took a lot of responsibilities on. Then my brother that's like 9 years older, he went in the Navy, he saw the world, did all kinds of stuff, but he never wanted to get married. That just wasn't his thing. He's always been independent. He's always been, this is my life. And so now he lives with our aunt. And to the outside, when you meet him, he's one of these guys. It's like an angry guy. If you want to talk to him, his politics are very, very vocal.
Yeah.
He has his own, but inside, just like Buck, and that's the thing that this movie kind of identifies with a lot of people. He wants to do good. Mm-hmm. He wants to, and so that's the thing that I think I really enjoy about the film is that the black sheep may not necessarily be as bad as you think they are. And at the end of the movie, that's where John Hughes kind of works that magic.
Has
where
his way, yeah.
Yeah. The teenage daughter that don't give a shit about what she's going through. Don't give a shit that her boyfriend is cheating on her with somebody else and they lock him in a car trunk. Yeah, that's all good. That's all good. But the Buck's journey, Uncle Buck's journey is much better, I think.
And if it were any other writer, director, I might almost think that was accidental, that the audience ends up caring more about Buck's arc than this so in your face situation that they weave through this entire movie. Like, okay, we fucking get it. She's terrible. Is she ever going to come around? But I'm certain with John Hughes that this was intentional, right? That there's this underlying conflict, but the bigger picture here is the Buck story. He's here for the first day, right? Already breaking dishes, but he's making breakfast. And this is the part of the movie, Greg, where I realized Tia, she's the oldest daughter. She's still a fucking bitch. And I hope she gets hit by a train. It started with car, and then as this movie went on, about this point, a car would be too good for her.
Yeah, I've never seen anybody worse. I've seen a lot of teenage angst in films. I've never seen anybody worse. Like I said earlier,
I watched Mississippi Burning and had more kind of... I had a softer spot in my heart.
I know where you're going with this.
I will not. But anyway.
Yeah.
But he's making breakfast for them. She's and he even says to her, I thought this was so, I like, obviously movies don't always have to be exactly how life would be. When you're going to make a movie like this line where he says, is there any particular reason that you're giving me such a hard time? Like, I appreciate that. It's an understated and I think probably kind of simple line that can be easily passed up, but that level of effort for an open pathway to communication is commendable. It's something that I think we don't take advantage of as often. And how much, I don't know about better, but how much different things might be if we just asked questions like that. Like, what is the reason why this is happening from your point of view? Not all the, craziness. And my God, if we're not inundated with information and everything's so loud, the whole world is so loud, and a simple, is there any particular reason why you're giving me such a hard time?
Right.
It just was so, I don't know. I found it really refreshing and a really interesting part of him as a person, and just kind of the movie as we move along towards what I hope is Tia's impending death.
Well, what's funny is it's an awesome point, because when you think about it, is there any point in the movie where Buck says to Tia, you're a piece of shit?
No.
You're worthless?
No.
Everything that Buck ever says to that girl is uplifting. He always says shit to Bug.
Yeah.
Like one of my favorite scenes is when he's doing the, the kid, you ever hear of a tune-up? And then he goes, you ever hear of a ritual killing? It's like, so he says shit to Bug, but never to Tia. He never says anything derogatory. He never calls her a slut. He just says, not on my watch. You're not doing this while I am here. If you want to get you, one of the things I love he says is like, get used on your parents' time.
Yeah.
But you're not going to do it with me. And then when she even tells him that she sold him out to his own girlfriend and lied, did you have a bad day? Buck just turns around and walks away. And so that, to me, is a theme in the screenplay, that the character, as they wrote him, this is how he was going to be. He was never going to be vindictive. He was always going to be that comfort. Even though you may have thought bad about him, he was always going to be a good guy.
Yeah, and that consistency, again, is kind of all of the irritating parts of this film notwithstanding, is kind of what keeps things pushing along, right? And it makes you, and we do get into more of this, it kind of makes you want to know how he is going to handle situations as they come up in his, like you said, kind of kind-hearted, not vindictive. I got real confused by Tia outside of the fact that she's a fucking worst character that's ever been in a movie ever, including American History X. Like, is she supposed to be 17, 15? At various times through this, they kind of age her up to fit some scene of the movie, age her down. Oh, you can't drive, so Buck has to take you to school. Age her, it was this, right. And I'm not saying that her physical age changed or that it was that part was inconsistent, but just more the way they treated that character was like, we need a teenage girl of some unspecified age to fill this scene.
Right.
And I just kept going, yes, I could see an 18-year-old acting like this, but not a 13-year-old. I could see a 14-year-old acting like this, but not a 17-year-old. It was this inconsistent thing that
I hear you. The actress does a great job of making you hate her, and it wonders, because if you look at the trivia, you see that John Hughes' first choice was Winona Ryder.
Yes,
and I think if Winona Ryder had played that role, she would have been much more sensitive. I don't see Winona Ryder playing it that angsty to the point where it may have been a better movie. to be honest with you. I think that would have been dialed back a little bit. And then I think we would have had more of a connection between Winona Ryder and John Candy, and it might have been taking it over the top.
I think you're
for
right.
me,
I'm going to write a letter to John Hughes and try to find out
well,
what he.
good luck with that.
What? Yeah. Oh, guys, man, I didn't know that we were going to have to do this tonight. But if you're standing listening to the podcast, I suggest you sit down because we have some breaking news.
No.
You heard it here first from Jarrett Goes to the Movies live stream, minus Jarrett, add Greg. John Hughes dead at the age of 59.
Yes.
Back in 2009.
Yes.
So,
which is so young. I mean, seriously. I mean that's
and you wonder what work could have come from a mature John Holmes. You don't
mature John Holmes. Well, I'm sure there would have been some great work from a mature John Holmes.
I was thinking of a movie I watched.
I think John Holmes would have given us some great work.
I think John Holmes died pretty young too, dude.
He did too. Yeah, he did.
I feel like, Greg, in my mind, I knew that at some point tonight I was going to say John Holmes.
The images going through my mind at John Holmes directing Home Alone.
And just knocking everything over. Boom.
Oh, he is the boom mic.
Damn it. Well, John Holmes, so we hope you're doing even if John Hughes can't be with us tonight.
No.
Oh, okay. Well, he does drive her to school. We get this running gag with the backfire thing. Now, Greg, you seem like a handy person. Can cars, the way that they're built today, still backfire, or does like the computer inside your car keep that from happening?
That's a good question, because I've never had a car, a recent car within the last 20 years do things like that.
Because it's a trope, right, with the old 70s car.
Yes. Yeah. I actually had, now this is, I think it's a Marquis that he calls it. It's a Mercury Marquis. Because I had a Mercury Marquis when I was growing up. It was like a 78. And it did that all the time. It just, those kind of cars, you could just keep running with baling wire and just keep them together with twist ties or whatever you get, duct tape, whatever you could throw in there. And they would stay running for a long time. And they would make those crazy because you just keep them on the road. I love at the end when he's like, when his girlfriend says, I'm going to get him a new company car. He's like, no, the beast has got 100,000 more miles left in her.
My dad drove a olive green Pinto for most of my childhood. Maybe I was about the time I got my driver's license. He got rid of the Pinto, and no, it must have been a little before that. So he had got rid of the Pinto maybe when I was like 12. Then when I got my license, he bought my grandmother's Chevy Cavalier, 1984 Chevy Cavalier.
Nice.
For me,
classic
to drive. But you're right. My dad probably spent more time fixing that car than literally anything else in his life for those 10 years.
Yeah, and back then you could. And we got in the chat somebody that said that the new cars can be tuned to do that, but they won't come that way from the factory. So so new ones, literally they're built much better. I mean, back then, I almost say they're built much better back then now than they are back then. They were different. I mean, you have a lot of different type of mechanisms. You got a computerized engine. You got a lot of high tech parts, and I think they're kind of built a little bit better today. Safer. I will say this though. I will tell a personal story. I had a 78 Marquis And then later I had a 78 Ford LTD, right? This thing was like 4-door. And I was in a car accident with this thing with a Reliant K. I don't know if you remember these vehicles. They came out in the late 80s. They were very inexpensive, and they were made of aluminum. They were made of like what you make a soda can out of. And I drove onto an interstate, and right in the middle of like a traffic jam was just getting started. So it was like I hit the gas to get on the interstate, but all the cars are backing up, that kind of thing. Uh-huh. So I'm, gunning it to merge into traffic, and I don't see that all the other cars are going. And this car right in front of me just slams on their brakes, doesn't give me any time to slow down. And this 78 LTD I just plowed into the back of them. The Reliant K crumpled like an aluminum can. The LTD, like a tank.
Like an army tank.
So the police show up, and they literally walk over to the front of my bumper, and there was a little piece of rubber molding that had come loose. And then the cop just shoves it into place and goes, "You're good. You're good." So the body-wise, these cars were amazing. And engine-wise, I mean, there's things you could work on that then you couldn't work on now. And that's why I think it's funny when you look at this movie in a time capsule, that his beast, he doesn't want to give it up because it's reliable to him. He can keep it running.
But this is one of those reasons why, and I am guilty of doing it sometimes too, but there's not a lot that I hate more than the kids these days fucking thing. Like, kids these days don't know how to work on a car. Like, I can open up the hood to a 2019 car, and you tell me what the fuck a kid is supposed to learn about this. I mean, there are certain things that you can do for yourself. I could probably teach Eller to change the oil in both of our cars, to change a flat. I could teach Eller how to change the brake pads if I wanted to. Guess what? They'll change your oil for like $13.99 down here.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what it costs me to do it?
Yeah.
$20 and a trip to Walmart and 30 minutes out in the summer heat. And they don't make them the way they used to. You can't just piddle around in your car like people used to. And so that's one of the things that just pisses me off is this, and look, hot opinion, and I don't know if you're going to agree with it or not, but these fucking people who are like, I mean, kids don't even know how to write in cursive anymore. I mean, what happens next? Man, fuck a bunch of cursive, okay? Because the kid will learn how to write. He knows his letters. And you know what I'd rather him learn than cursive is literally fucking anything that will help him out when he's an adult. Because besides writing checks, which I do twice a year, I have not written in cursive for
the twice a year thing got me. That's good.
30.
Yeah.
30. The last time someone made me write in cursive was the last time I wrote in cursive.
Right.
And I want Eller to learn about computer programming or, I don't know, personal finance, which I never got taught in school. I would have much rather them taught me about what credit meant and what balancing a checkbook looked like.
Yes.
And all of this stuff than fucking
getting
cursive.
a mortgage.
Sorry, I don't have my parchment paper and my quill and, dearest Homestead, it has been a fortnight since I last received your letter. I hope this correspondence finds you well and that brother has gotten over his diphtheria. What the fuck? Like, there's no reason for that.
No, there's
not. And I can't handle it. But there are people out there. I mean, it's one of the reasons I had to quit Facebook. It was just the number of hot takes out there about kids these days. When kids these days, you know what kids these days are a product of? Their fucking parents. Me, you. We are the people who made the world that these kids these days live in. It's not, and even if cursive was important, which it's not and never will be ever again.
Yeah.
Even if it was important, we're the reasons they ain't learning it because we decided for, whatever. So, like, y'all out there, quit with the kids these days shit, because it's the same thing that your parents were saying about the Beatles, and it's the same thing that their parents were saying about fucking Glenn Miller and this new use of saxophones and music. I can't handle it, whatever it was. And the generation before that wearing, onions on their belts because that was what was in style at the time, or whatever. Fuck them. Like, every generation has the kids these days, and we need to stop the cycle. Let the kids be fucking kids. They're doing the best they can in this bullshit of a world we created for them. So let's just give them a fucking break. Back to you, Greg.
Well, you gotta take a breath now.
I'm wound up.
It's like Clark Griswold. Hallelujah! Holy shit! Where's the Tylenol? No, the thing is, it's the truth. I mean, I learned cursive when I was in school, and it's not done me any good. Today, if I wanted to write in cursive, I can just go in Word and change the font. And that's all I got to do if I want to write in cursive. So it is meaningless. Back then, it may have thought to have some meaning to it, but no, it's not. But that's just one example of everything, like you said. Things change from generation to generation. Technology makes things obsolete. So we have to kind of back up. One of my kids, the other day, we were having a conversation, and we were talking about the differences between wanting to have a job that pays well and having a job that you value. And being a child of the 80s, my first instinct is have a job that pays well. Have a job that you can support your family. That was what we were taught growing up. Mm-hmm. We grew up in the Reagan area where it was capital was king. That's, you've got to be able to take care of your family. So you sacrifice a lot. You don't live for your dreams. You live for your children. You live for your family. And so you have to get into this thing. What do I do in today's world? So if this generation, and here's the thing, is if this generation says, look, for me, it's more important to do something that I'm happy with and get less money and then have a happier life and have a family life that I'm more proud of than to make a ton of money, then that's what's important to me. And what made me laugh, though, was I said, that's great. You go on ahead and you do your thing. Just be prepared that when you get to be my age, that your child goes, fuck you, Dad. I want to make money. I want to do my shit, because that's the way it goes. Everybody has got their own thing that drives them. And so, we've talked about this movie quite a bit. And I'm starting to move it up my list a little bit because it has a little bit more about society than you think when you start really peeling back the onion on this film.
I was just going to say the same thing. It has a little sneak attack to it that once you start, thinking about it and talking about it, because I agree with you. It wasn't even on my list of top 5, which we'll get to here in a little bit. But I could see it replacing one of them. We'll jump through this. I just had a note here about it. We do finally meet Bug. Well, we talked about the wedding picture and him being folded out. Yeah. That scene is a real kick in the heart.
It is.
And that's a universal, you kind of, maybe you're a little bit of an outsider, but you don't realize quite how much and how much they must despise you to do something like that. That was really powerful. We meet Bug for the first time. I think the biggest red flag for Bug, besides that he's just a teenage boy, that's every red flag that ever could be combined into one. But a teenage boy who wears a beret.
Red flag.
Kind of goes back to that Corey Feldman thing. Like, you can be pretty much whoever you want to be as long as it doesn't, inhibit others' happiness or, it cause problems for other people.
Yeah.
But I think acting like Michael Jackson all the time and wearing a beret, again, it's a bridge too far. I think it says a lot about you as a person that you would choose to do that.
Yeah.
And so the second I saw him, I knew I wasn't going to hate him as much as Tia, but I knew that so far on the teenager scale, we're
Right.
0 for 2 on likable teenagers in this film. I did really like and again, I keep saying this, but I have a 7-year-old, and I think Macaulay Culkin's like supposed to be around this age in this film, maybe a little older. But I have a friend at the crime lab who can tell me if you brushed your teeth or just is some. And again, I keep saying because you've got kids that are older now.
Yeah.
You have to be like on your A+ quasi harmless manipulation game with kids,
Right.
to get any type of movement in the direction you want. It's kind of like, I think gone are the days that you just beat them until they do what you want, and I think that's good.
No, that's a good thing.
In a different direction than that.
Yeah.
So we have figured out that maybe hitting children till they do what we want isn't the right thing, but I don't think that we've bridged the gap into how you exactly get them to do what you want, just kind of like peacefully.
Yeah.
So this manipulation and creative stories about why things have to be a certain way or why you ought to do. Did you ever watch Arrested Development?
Yes.
So their gag was the guy who didn't have an arm. And so they'd be like, driving down the highway, and dad didn't want him eating ice cream in the car, but they did. And they spilled their ice cream, and then it causes a car accident, and the guy comes running up and his arm is off and all bloody. And he turns around and goes, "And that's why you don't eat ice cream in the car." And he had set it up with his buddy, and it like kept happening.
Well, yeah, it's exactly what they do in the film. It's that the thing is you make a great point with the parenting thing is like you get this guy who you see the parents at the beginning of the film have no idea how to control their kids.
They're out of touch.
Even the parent, the one dad, Macaulay Culkin, show him how to use chopsticks and actually feeding his dad. Yeah. That is deliberate to illustrate that the parents have no control. And then you get this guy out of nowhere who just comes in and goes, I could call my buddy at the crime lab and he can check your toothbrush to see if it has toothpaste on it. And as soon as he leaves, the little girl goes, "If that's the case, we need to start brushing our teeth for real."
Oh, so good. All right, Sean, hit us with that next clip.
All right.